Nice to see you all here this morning. I'll be moderating this discussion, keeping these characters under control. And we've already heard from Philip and Richard's perspective on the future of the workplace. Now let's turn individually to our expert panelists and see what they have to say. Let me introduce them all just briefly again. First, Dr. Megan Devitt over there is a behavioral psychologist who's currently working with Mirvac on a new head office project. She's also worked with a lot of Australia's blue chip companies and has had more than 20 years' experience assisting organizations change the way they work. Peter Karlov is a partner in the law firm Cars Chambers Westgarth, whose recent move to 8 Chifley is part of a new strategy to drive change. He'll shed light on how physical change can drive increased collaboration in the workplace. At the end, we have Max Wilson, Mirvac General Manager, Corporate Services, who plays a pivotal role in the company's capacity to lead clients through the entire process of co-creation, from design to delivery. And of course, you've already heard from Richard and from Philip. We heard Philip just now talk about the jelly bean culture and buildings with embedded intelligence, which of course brings to mind images of 1984, Big Brother. I want to turn to Megan on this point. Megan, is this trend really part of progress? Are people going to welcome this sort of thing with open arms in your experience?
I think probably it comes down to two things. It comes down to how is that information or that intelligence intended to be used, both now and in the future? And do I trust my colleagues and my managers that they're going to have my best interests at heart?
Lawyers are traditionally a very conservative bunch. How would they react to that sort of level of intrusion?
We're not going to do anything in that regard. I think that, look, I suppose maybe I'm scarred in a journey of the last 2 to 3 years with the premises committee, our firm, moving from an office environment to an open plan or to a flexible working space, and trying to move people along that journey. And there's kind of two things about that. First and foremost, if you say that you are moving to an open plan environment to save money, it's the kiss of death to the argument. You will lose. So you actually never mention in the war that you're going to save money. And the second thing about it is that because you're constantly emphasising that we're doing this to inspire our workplace, to inspire our people, that any hint that we're going to have measures around tracking people. I'm intensely interested in surveying our staff as to whether they find where they're working an inspiring place to work, and I'm wanting to engage constantly on that score. But I suppose tactically, I want to keep right away from that. I'm keeping any sort of metrics.
We're constantly hearing about the need to use physical space to encourage creativity. But of course, one person's big boisterous creative space is another person's idea of hell. People like their privacy. Richard, if I can turn to you at the end there, what's your take on how we design an environment that supports this high level of creativity?
Look, I think creativity is such a broad and I think generally misunderstood term. And if we're not careful, creativity gets associated with certain people who do certain activities and who are quite loud about it. Right? When we know, of course, that creativity is also equally invested in people who actually live a very solitary life. Some of our greatest poets, artists, writers, their reflections on the world come out of a removal from the world. So creativity is a very broad human endeavour. All of us are creative. And therefore we need environments which support this diversity. This is the key. I think a fundamental trap for us now we've been liberated, now we've been let out of all of those little boxes and cubicles that all look the same, is to go straight into another paradigm that is equally as restrictive in another way, right? So we go, okay, we had enough of that, now we're going to go, where's the ABS formula? We'll have that.
I'm a little bit worried about Australian workplace at the moment. I mean, I first came into this market, I got a call from Macquarie, I guess about sort of 7 years ago for Shelley Street, and they said, look, you know, is there something else we should think about? And, you know, I brought them to Europe, I showed them true activity-based environments, and that was then implemented. I kind of feel, having seen it over the years, it's now become a bit of a prescription here. ABW seems to be a flavour that is now, I don't think, particularly well defined. It doesn't seem to be true activity working, it's more a disguise for hot desking. And that's dangerous because you risk a backlash. You know, real activity-based working is very different elsewhere. It's much more about people. And the idea was actually invented by a guy called Bob Luchetti in the States in the 80s and published in the Harvard Business Review an article saying the office is where you are. What I'm now seeing globally is it's becoming the office is who you are. And that needs to be infused into thinking here to prevent this risk of a backlash.
So there are still a few challenges ahead.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much indeed, panel, for your words of wisdom today, and I'm sure that you've all enjoyed them.